up, guys? It is Rapmark here.
Casual Houseplant.
Indeed. So, start off, obviously, Fire Dragonfly was not well, so she could not join us. And this is my friend I was talking about, that I was talking about bringing in on these reviews. And I thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you all.
Indeed. So today we are doing Astra. This was the new Brad Pitt, like Tommy Lee, a movie that really, like, I've only started hearing it being promoted like a few weeks before it even came out.
Yeah, it didn't really have a lot of outreach when it came to the actual advertising.
Yeah, and like this movie, it was like if you saw the trailers, you would think it was a totally different movie. This movie was totally different from what we were expecting.
You're expecting more of some kind of alien space drama, but it doesn't quite deliver that punch.
Yeah, it was more like a psychological, if anything, but with beautiful backdrops. I will say that. That's the one thing I loved, is all the backdrops just look so beautiful. Like, even the ones that you could tell they weren't like like models, they still looked really good. I think that in terms of the graphics, they were pretty good. What
Their CGI was smooth. That I will give it, and it just stayed consistent with the landscapes. A lot of beautiful imagery as well, since they are floating through space. Really good job with conceptualizing what the planets would look like up close.
Oh yeah, I love Neptune. Like, it's dark blue hues.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and the belts around it too. You did a really good job with that.
Yeah, I was impressed. Like, literally for like how the story went out, and how low budget it was for how beautiful it looked. I think they did an amazing job.
I can definitely agree with that. And then even inside the spaceships, they definitely had good work with the floating and just getting all of that generated properly.
Oh yeah.
So it was definitely a visually pleasing one.
Like, yeah, not to get too much into it, but like, there's a chase scene at some point, and they go off of a crater edge, and you just see it spinning as it slowly descends. And the moon doesn't have that much gravity, so yeah, that's probably what it would be like. It wouldn't be like on Earth, where that would probably kill you.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, then it kind of gives the suspense of like waiting to feel the drop. Because what else would you do on the moon? You're just kind of sitting there waiting. You know you're going to fall and eventually impact.
Oh yeah. And what did you think of the cast? Like, there were a lot of, like, for me, there was a lot of actors in this movie, but I'm still sick. I apologize. I may be coughing through this. But it didn't seem like, with the exception of Brad Pitt, no one really got a lot of screen time.
That I can definitely agree with. It didn't really come too far across, because once they would introduce one of the prominent actors that they just kind of showed in the commercials, they were briefly just shown and then cut off quickly. So no one really played a large part in this, minus Brad Pitt, and then towards the end, Tommy Lee Jones. But
even Tommy Lee Jones, though, like, yeah, it's like they're just there to do a part, and then they're gone. Like, for me, this was all about, like, Brad Pitt's, like, story through just mental issues.
And that I actually really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely just more of the solo, just kind of the lonely feel of going into outer space. It's not too focused on anyone else. You would have a lot of internal contemplation, a lot of time just to think, especially because it goes over a span of like 80 days at one point of just being alone. So you just really get to see more of the internal workings going on.
Yeah, and when I think about, like, I was just like, it seemed really slow until I got to the ending and I realized what this movie was actually about. And then I realized, no, this was perfect pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't speed it up more than it had to, and it didn't keep it too slow. Like, I was always watching. There was never a point where I was just like, all right, this is maybe lingering a little too long. But there were points where I'm just like, this seems pretty elaborate for what they're trying to do here. Like I'll get into it more in the spoilers, but let's just say there was a space monkey scene that had a specific purpose, and it just seemed like way too elaborate for what they were trying to do with it. Like shows leadership potential, I guess.
Yeah, the monkey scene I will give was a bit far-fetched, but of course we will get into that in a little bit here. But, we show some funky space fighting.
Oh yeah.
Kept it interesting for the first half of the movie.
And I did like the concept of like the pirates on the moon. Like, you know, how people or was that? Yeah, it was the moon.
Mm-hmm.
How people are claiming the moon. There's no borders, though. Like, they're pirates that are harbored by certain countries, and they attack convoys. And I like that concept, and I like the weaponry they brought. Like, I think they did a good job of what it would be. I mean, obviously, there would be no noise as much as there was.
No noise, and I feel like if you're firing shots in space, maybe that might be a little bit different just with like the speed and everything going through as well.
Yeah.
But I do give the fight scenes were pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
But again, very brief. You
Yeah,
thought
they
they would
weren't
get more
very much,
into it
yeah.
about the struggles on the moon. But they still gave you just a glimpse of it. And that's pretty much the whole main part that had Donald Sutherland. It's the main point you see him.
Yeah, like there are characters that you think are gonna play like huge roles in this movie, and no, they just go poof within a scene or two. It's insane, and like again, the biggest complaint I had with it are there were just some things that just seemed out of place or just tacked on.
Yeah, just kind of more as publicity, if anything, just to give the trailer a little more to look at.
Yeah, because the trailer made it seem like it would be more action-packed, like this, whatever the surge was going to be like a big deal.
Yeah, you would think the surge would have more of a giant effect on the whole system of how things would work. But even once they go into space, the surge doesn't seem like a big deal up until like the very end part of the movie.
Yeah, and even then it's just like, oh, this is all it is. Yeah, I won't say what it is until spoilers, but like the ending was just like, okay, it wasn't the ending I was expecting,
No.
but I wasn't disappointed with the ending either, if that makes sense.
Once you go into it with a different knowledge than what you were expecting going in, I definitely would say the ending is fitting for the overall movie. It just kind of matches the theme of what they're actually trying to show.
Yeah, so what I would say is like, if you're going in here thinking that this is going to be like a cool like sci-fi kind of sci-fi like action kind of movie, this is not the movie you want for you.
No, definitely not.
But if you like,
It's climactic.
yeah, if
as
you
it
like
needs to be.
psychological type movies that tell a single story, you know, this is actually a really deep story, and it's really good because, I mean, that's the whole thing. The director pretty much said it. He wanted to show what it would actually be like in space for these long periods of time.
And they definitely were able just to portray the actual it's desolate. There's not much going on.
Yeah, your mind starts
There's
to go.
no music.
You're,
And I liked their soundtrack a lot because it wasn't
oh my
over
God,
the
yes.
top. There wasn't any soaring scores or anything like that. It was all very minimal and very subtle. So it was able just to keep the theme of the movie, but you can still hear every single breath, every single anticipating moment.
And I just thought about, do you know what it really makes me think of?
What?
Odyssey 2001.
Yes, it's
Like,
definitely reminiscent, but
yeah,
less
but-
on the artistic scale.
Yeah. But I mean, you can see what I'm saying. Like, it's literally a singular story. It's got no really big action, just a few things that happen. For the most part, it's all about this, like, psychology.
Yeah, and like with the sound quality wise,
With great music, too.
I would say it would be kind of near The Shining, just when Danny is specifically going through like the hallways on his trike.
Oh, yeah,
like
just the
that.
creepiness.
Because all you hear is just the actual moving. You hear like every little movement, compartments opening, but no background sound besides that.
And I did like how accurate they were with some of the things. Like, at the beginning, there's a scene where there's a big explosion. Like, you see it, but you can't hear it because at that high, there's no air, so you can't hear anything.
Mm-hmm.
but yet there's still the violence of these. Like they did a great job with that in terms of that.
Mm-hmm.
There were some things where there was a little bit too much noise, you know, and obviously fire in space. That's another inconsistency.
Yeah. It's kind of questionable because in the beginning, though, I don't think they're too far out of like our actual atmosphere.
Yeah, I think they're still.
The beginning is good. They have great fall aesthetic there because the falls and how he tumbles all the way down.
Because before you can catch air, like the actual where there's atmosphere, you can't steady yourself. Like if you're in a roll, you're gonna be stuck in that roll until you get some sort of friction.
Exactly.
And it showed that very well.
One thing I would criticize is possibly when you're falling from quite that high up for such a long time, I feel like you would be far more prone to passing out. Like, just in general, because that is higher than just jumping off, like, a building or something like that. Because you're actually, like, pretty much in orbit.
Yeah, like, he's in low Earth orbit, you know, where you can still fall, but that's miles up in the sky. Like, this isn't like a plane that's only 5 miles up. This is probably, 60 to 80 miles up in the sky, wouldn't you say?
I can't even imagine, honestly. But I feel like it would be very far-fetched to stay conscious coming down from that and being able to pull your parachute.
Yeah, and he sounded like, it sounded like they were trying to explain it because he says just like, I hope I can get some friction before I pass out.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it never happened. It never seemed like passing out was actually
because he just kept tumbling in a circle over and over and over and over.
And when you're doing that, you're going to have massive G-force, and that's going to knock you out.
Big time, because it's the equivalent of if you're going on a roller coaster and you keep going in loops.
Yeah.
You're eventually not going to be able to handle it, especially fast. So, but one thing I did like, once he was able to pull his parachute, they did still show the rebel falling from the sky. A lot of movies forget the consistency because it shows a lot of things exploding and breaking off.
Mm-hmm.
So once he was coming down, once his parachute did open, you see all of that, just like fractals and other things shooting through his parachute. And it becomes an actual concern. So
yeah, because it actually breaks through his parachute, and you actually see tons of stuff coming out.
Yeah, debris everywhere.
The rings of Neptune is another thing I like. Like when he was going through it with that piece of sheet metal. Like you look at it and you think it's all very beautiful, but if you actually have to go through it, you're going at a speed I guess maybe 40 to 60 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm. And you have to consider all those items are orbiting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get enough forward momentum to go through them,
that's literally like a bullet coming at you.
Yeah. That was definitely a good consistency there.
Yeah, I liked how that was actually a factor because it's not just fine dust that's out there. There are big particles.
Oh, big time. And with how that part started, not quite so consistent, I think. I don't think he gained enough speed with just circling around because there's this kind of propeller-like item that's rotating, and he gets enough stamina and friction off of that he's able to shoot off in one direction.
And the fact that he's able to go into a straight line, yeah.
So, that part, inconsistent, but for the suspension of disbelief, pretty good.
Indeed. And then, of course, there's the whole theoretical thing of whether or not an explosion would be able to propel him back home.
Yeah, that's kind of the tough point, because he even brings up, if I survive this, but with such a large explosion from the surge, you would think, oh, this is just going to decimate the ship. The ship won't survive to go forward. But for some reason, it gives his rockets an extra thrust.
Indeed.
He gets thrown back towards Earth at the perfect angle.
Indeed. And then the ending, it's a good ending. I enjoyed how it ended. I wasn't disappointed with seeing this movie. It wasn't what I was expecting. So, pretty much what I liked about this movie, I liked the music, I liked the effects, and I honestly like Brad Pitt. I think he did a great job.
I feel Brad did do a great job in the movie for sure. And then on top of it, I also just like kind of the feeling of it overall. Most movies try putting too much social interaction. But this movie didn't really focus on that. Again, it's all internal. It's just focusing on this one man's struggle with himself going forward.
And that's pretty much what it is. So based on that, like I was going to give it a 6, but thinking more and more about the movie, like I actually realized that I actually did enjoy it. I'm giving it a 7.
I would say probably I'd give it a solid 7 or a 6.5. Because as far as sci-fi films, since I went into it with the wrong expectation.
Yeah, and that's why I was initially going to give it a 6, yeah.
But in the end, definitely would give it more of a solid rating as a 7. Definitely want to rewatch it again. Definitely check it out.
Indeed. So we will be back with our spoiler section here in just a bit. So we'll see you in a bit.